Yes, I do.
Okay, Kristof, if you're just joining us, my guest today is Kristof Fenyvesi, and he is a researcher at, oh boy, what's the name of that college in Finland?
University of Jyväskylä. It's in central Finland.
It's in central Jyväskylä, University of Jyväskylä. I have to learn that. It's not
exactly.
easy. It's not easy for me to pronounce. And you are actually a Hungarian teaching education and researching education in Finland, correct?
Exactly.
And that's interesting to me because Hungarians, most people maybe don't know in America, Hungarians have this reputation of being brilliant mathematicians. And it seems like Hungarian mathematicians are behind many great advances all over the world in rocket programs from different countries or whatever it is, radiation. It always seems like there's a Hungarian mathematician who's like behind the curtain on the left, who's doing lots of good math. Is there a reason why Hungary produces so many great mathematicians?
I can't tell you its secret. You know, if I would tell you,
right,
then,
that's part of the tradition.
We would be in deep trouble. So that's
right.
one of our most important national secrets.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. So just to mention a few from the field of mathematics. So George Poya or Rózsa Péter, and DNS Zoltán Zedi DNS. So there are many great Hungarians in the past and also in the present who contribute to the mathematics research and also mathematics education as well.
Yeah, and that's the answer I usually get. It's a secret. They always wink at me and say, we can't tell. But and I've met some of our mutual friends like Zolt, our Hungarian mathematicians, the head of GeoGebra, and you and I have traveled together in the American East Coast, Connecticut and New York, doing the little show you do. And tell us a little bit about your program called Experience Workshop.
Yeah, actually, just to not make fun out of this very important question. So there are many research about also that why these specific Hungarian, not only mathematicians, but also scientists like physicists, chemists are really on the top. And there was a great generation, or actually generations of these fantastic intellectuals, and many traces, many paths going back to some certain schools. So I guess we will talk about schools today also. And these individuals had really exceptional teachers as well. Maybe we don't know their name, actually not from the Nobel laureate candidates list, but we can identify these teachers and these schools which were really the cradle of these fantastic results. And also Central Europe, as you know, also as a descendant of Italians, so not too far from Italy, also Austria and Vienna and Budapest, you know, and I could still mention all the capitals around Hungary as well. These were very important intellectual sources what contributed to the Western intellectual life in the 20th century. So most probably there are these secrets actually hidden, and these are coming also from communication and a little open-minded period, because also, you know, it's not just an accident that all of these people actually made a great career, not necessarily in Hungary. Just a very few of them decided to stay in Hungary, but very many of them actually contributed to your country's science history, so ended up in the US because they needed to flee from Hungary because of the oppression. So I think they were free-minded, open-minded people, and with a great culture, which also contributed to the 20th century. And about experience workshops, so these things are really connected. because what we are trying to do in Experience Workshop is to bring forward also the heritage of these great intellectuals just you mentioned, and they were really great in problem solving. I think 20th century and maybe 21st century even more are the centuries of problem solving. If you really deeply think about that and just about this current situation, you know, what we see around, that we really hardly try to solve these global problems, these global challenges. And I think these people knew something about this, which were also the scientific tradition and the mathematical tradition of problem solving, which of course goes back to centuries and many thousands years before the 20th century, and also somehow located in every different great culture. So not only the European culture, but just to mention Chinese culture and also African heritage, we can see all of these traces also in mathematics. So we try to collect these great traditions, mostly what could be preserved for the modern thinking, and merge them with the best practices what we find today in today's school. So not necessarily in the university lecture halls, but in real schools with real teachers, real children. And we also try to handpick those toolkits, those devices, those toolkits. Like I should mention, of course, Lux blocks is one of those which we found through many years of research of these toolkits, which are mostly and bestly support these problem solving thinking in the everyday realities.
Right. And the Experience Workshop actually is like a moving, how would you describe it? You move around the location to location, and you have
yes.
How would you describe Experience Workshop as it exists when you actually do it?
Yeah, of course, there is an official or a more how can I say, more official approach, which I would say that it's like an agency that we are really trying to support these projects, these people who are contributing to this innovative and creative education on every level. So we try to support these movements, and also a little bit, not exactly coordinate them, but just helping each other to get to know about each other, and help them to communicate, and also to join forces, because that's a key thing, that how we can grow bigger when we are connected. So
right.
there is this connection function. But in the same time, we are not located to any certain places. Of course, we have a Hungarian core team, and also there is a core team in Finland. But as you know, that you are also a member of Experience Workshop. So this is a very international and a very open movement. So we try to be also really dynamic and really contribute to these conversations, also on the policy level, and also on the everyday level of learning.
Right. And we talked about this before, the pedigree, where this all comes from, the assumptions that you make in Experience Workshop, that there is a universal experience of humanity, that learning came through experience and through working with your hands. It could have been prelingual, right? Humanity, all Africa, Asia, Europa, whatever it was, early humans were obviously learning and developing tools and understandings of their own, right? Before there was mathematics. But, and this grew into cultural manifestations, right? And you and I have talked about how the way of looking at education today, there's a few sources. You could look to Napoleonic Wars and the influx of orphans, and what society in Europe had to do with orphans was the Catholic Church made orphanages. And when you had all these children in a room, you might have an innovative priest who says, these children who have no parents in cities in Italy, they could really do well by learning these, either these gifts, this knowledge, these skills, or learning how to socialize, right? And so in that same milieu of the 19th century came forth an intellectual called Rousseau, right? And he wrote a book called Emile. And Rousseau, being Rousseau, he always likes to blow everything up and start new. But Emile was very provocative, and people like Goethe and Pestalozzi and later Froebel, his student, and Montessori, they saw this idea of human beings without education not being savages, because that was the model before, right? If a human being isn't formally educated, the alternative is savagery and barbarism and very ugly animalistic humanity, which is to be avoided at all costs. And Rousseau, and later argued by his followers and by people like Pestalozzi, said humans at the child level are these beautiful potentialities, right? These connecting, making machines. And given the being allowed to experience and given the tools of building on that experience, these children will have outcomes we can't predict. They might be the new geniuses, the new innovators, and not just at the high IQ level, but they just might be just really great citizens, okay? Because they learned naturally, not just being put into an institution for 12 years, told what to do and how to think. Is that a fair estimation of the different forces working on schooling and childhood?
Yeah, you are just talking from the depth of my heart, if I want to say, in this Rousseauian spirit with some 18th century enthusiasm and also this brotherhood I feel here. Because yes, definitely Emile was also my very dear reading from my teenagerhood, actually. So I really loved that book, and it also started me to think also critically about education. And also it's just as you mentioned, just as you described. So this is one of the most important turn, I think, in Western educational thinking, to recognize the children on its own value, that children are valuable in themselves without any interest, right? If we want to say on a Kantian way. Just as you told that the potentiality of children, and also the control over maybe a better future, if you want to say in a more utopian way. That's something what also drives me, of course, first of all on my private level in my private life, but also this is the basic and I think the most important what if experience workshop can provide something, that should be the most important and the most basic thing, that to provide this respect to the potentiality of the children, and also to helping to contribute to the community of learners, and also contribute to those parts where maybe family or maybe the institutions, or certainly these cannot contribute on an equal way. So we try to find these gaps, and we try to fill in these gaps also on a reflected way. So we want to know what we are doing and want to take these actions responsibly and also in a continuum. So that's why we found important that we also like organized into this community, which is Experience Workshop.
Right. And there's different ways of course, we're not Rousseau, and we're not going to blow up the schools and start fresh. As nice as that might sound, we just can't do that, because there's lots of vested interests, good and bad, in having schools the way they are right now, right? So we're not going to destroy anything, because we're a free society, and people have the schools they mostly want. So we're trying to improve them as best we can, right? By dialogue and training and debate sometimes. But in the West, we have what we have. And when STEAM came around, I was educated as a teacher at DePaul, And this was before STEAM back in the 90s. And the model was different. The words were like paradigm shift. Those were the big buzzwords of the day. This is before STEM and STEAM. And now it's STEM and STEAM. And every time a new fashion comes around, there's new enthusiasts and new moneyed interests that want to bring tools to the schools like computers or devices or 3D printers or whatever it is, right? And they all have a very beautiful reason, and usually it's an acronym, and it was STEM and now it's STEAM, science, technology, education, arts, and mathematics. Now, of course, a math teacher who's been teaching math for 35 years, right? Or a science teacher who's been teaching for 25 years, they would say, well, what about, what am I, chopped liver? I've been teaching science this whole time, and I didn't call it STEM. Why is it, in your estimation, better that we have an acronym now, as opposed to a school that had the art teacher, the math teacher, the science teacher, the technology teacher? Why is it better to have STEM or STEAM?
Yes, these are also important questions. Actually, many ways they are important, because if you go out from America, from the US, mm-hmm. and you try to look for the STEAM education, so very STEAM. Actually, most probably, very few teachers will understand what you are looking for, mm-hmm. because this STEAM is a first of all is an English acronym, which is great as it is. But also we should recognize that it's mostly used in educational policy, and also among those group of intellectuals or researchers or educators who really try to contribute to the development of this field, mm-hmm. but not necessarily among the practitioners. And when you rather start to ask teachers what kind of things you are doing, what kind of things you think it's good that you are doing, and mm-hmm. what are those things which only you are doing, and maybe not your colleague. What are your most special activities which you sometimes do, or what you were dreaming about to be doing when you prepared to be a teacher. Then you start here about those practices which we tend to describe as STEAM, and that's why I'm also thinking that, and I'm also using STEAM because exactly because of that reason what you told, that it's require less explanation. And also this relationship between STEM and STEAM, I think this is important to see, first of all, that these are not methods, not even like approaches. Of course, I'm also saying that STEAM approach and so on, but these are more policies. And there are people behind, and there are organizations behind which definitely want to invest into that and also make money out of that. But I think this is very different from that circle of references what you opened up with Emil. And I think it's more important that we also recognize this tradition, what drives art and science to go hand in hand in the history, and also those kind of very specific moments in the history of education when these exceptional constellations like opened up and become visible. And also those visionaries, like you mentioned Rousseau, but we can, and you mentioned many others from the 18th and 19th century, but from the 20th century, and also today we can name even more of these visionaries, and also finding these links back in history, because also in when we start to talk about STEAM, we become very much like future oriented. and also technology oriented. We tend to forget about what you already brought in, that we do very important things with our hands, and actually our hands are probably the first devices which we start to use. And also this connection between the brain and the hand is very important. These are the first steps of learning, actually. And also the history of science and art also offers a lot content and a lot valuable content to learn about also in this STEAM integrative practices. So my key point is the integration and not the acronym, and also this respect towards the children, and also this, to serve the children's interest, to serve these many kind of potentialities and many kind of creativities what the children are approaching us with.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and you know I'm playing devil's advocate with you because I just wanted you to say it. It's a nice acronym. You could do a lot worse with acronyms in STEAM because you're just putting all the nice things into like a nice stone soup, right? It's like these are all the good things.
Yes.
And when you said integration, yes, of course, it's the idea is that you're trying to, in its most natural way, science and math and art and poetry and music and dance, these things should all be things in an ether, in the same room, right? And if you ask any scientist or mathematician worth his salt, he'll tell you that music is wonderful and art is wonderful. They play music, they make art. So the idea that these are specialisms, these specialties, and the kids just have to get good at that specialty and not integrate it and think of it in the same breath. To not think about writing a poem about a math equation. What's wrong with that, right? Or, and like you said, our first technology is our integration of our eyes and our hands and our body, right? That's technology. It's very difficult technology to master. And if we avoid our hands by using tablets all the time, right? Just because we look like we might be future workers because we're learning how to use a tablet, we could be missing out on essential skills. There are surgeons in the United States Army who have complained that the new breed of young doctor surgeons coming into battle can't use their hands, meaning like they don't know how to tie a knot, because when you're doing surgery, you have to tie an artery or vessel, or you have to make a stitch. And the basic things they might have learned in Boy Scouts 50 years ago, or in just being in craft in 4-H or these other organizations that used to be very popular, or just in school making craft, that's been taken away from kids because of all the work on the computers. Kids don't have handwriting anymore. But the doctor's complaint is very interesting to me because, you know, surgery is an old art. And it's a hand art, right? We don't have robots to do all our surgery yet. And so they have this problem just having surgeons in the field fix wounded people in the field because they didn't learn how to use their hands. Seems like a dramatic example of what we're talking about.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And there are these tendencies, what we are saying. And I think it's also important to clarify that we are not against of tablets, but we want to see everything on its place. Sorry?
You aren't.
Okay, I'm not against tablets and electronic devices, but right. I'm against to misuse things, right. and don't use the right things in the right moment. And actually, just to tell a few words about where I am now and why I am here. For example, in Finland, that was a very important point in my decision that I've chosen to come to Finland and to stay and to work here on education. It was that what I see, that what I saw in the kindergartens, also in the early childhood education, that here the main and the most important thing for the children is to play, first of all, and then also to play outside and spend as much time as possible outdoors and be immersed in your natural environment and play games, do things, realize your dreams, your tales, your imagination, explore yourself outdoors. And any weather can come, and you might know that Finnish weather can be really extreme when you think about minus 40 Celsius degrees in the winter, and maybe 25 plus 25 Celsius degrees in summer. And also the spring is also quite hectic with a lot of rainings and so on. But it's not important, but it's more important that the children are outside. And I had very interesting experiences in connection with that when I was coming here. For example, you're also aware that there is the light season and the dark season. So
right.
in winter time,
you're so far north.
It's like we have, where we are now, we have like some 4 hours of four sunny hours in the darkest part of the winter. And sometimes these hours are still like under heavy clouds. So it's real darkness all day. And when you walk around the city and you walk nearby a kindergarten, maybe there is deep snow, deep dark, and you just see little figures are running around in the forest, and you don't know who they are. It's like a scenery from Star Wars, you know, from a strange planet. And you find out that these are children who are just playing because it's like 3 p.m. You know, it's a very normal time to be outside. And during this time and during these activities, children learn really the basics about the relationship towards nature, towards themselves, and these stay with them in the whole lifetime. So Finland, in many ways, it's a very rural country, but in the same time, it's also the cradle of European innovation and also high tech. So there is also probably a joint path when you can have both of these domains.
Right. And to an American mind, and I don't want to speak for all Americans, but I live here. So the idea to most Americans, they'd say, you're giving little kids lots of recess, right? But you're not saying this is recess. You're saying this is part of their education. That there's important things happening cognitively, socially, psycho-emotionally, that their brain is actually working overtime when they're outside playing in a creek. I always mention creeks because I love creeks, but playing with other children, getting a little dirty, running around, being in a forest, or integrating with nature in a very three-dimensional environment, that this is profound. And to take that away from especially little children like kindergartners could be a liability, because this is when their brain is most fresh and most connecting. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And, you know, also there are families where they do a lot of excursion, they go a lot of outdoors and camping and scouting and all of this. But I know that you are also into all of these things. But what I see in Finland, that the school and also early childhood education is really playing an equalizing role, that it's not anymore that decisive that what's your family background is. I mean, how many chances you got to nurture your potentials. But the official institutionalized schooling education really take this equalizing role. Of course, it's not that challenging when you have only 5.5 million people to take care about. But that was what was really among those things what were really convincing to me. And I saw it also in the adult society, all these kind of benefits, and also this value of the child. So I had many sort of radical experiences in connection with that, some kind of personal memories. I can tell some if you want later or this point. So
you had radical experiences with what exactly?
Yeah, for example, that about like also about knowing myself. That was my learning process in coming to Finland. Of course, going to a new country, that's always the best way to learn about yourself also.
Right.
But yeah, for example, I think about myself that I'm quite an open-minded person who may be a little bit more patient than many others, especially with children. So I have this image of myself about myself, but still, when in connection with parenting, I recognize I have two small children, so a 4-year-old girl, and we have also a 7-year-old boy. So I recognize many times that you know, do something instead of the child, it always goes faster, and you are always in the rush, especially with your lifestyle, and you always just missing something, and you need to be fast, and this speed is many times different than children's speed, who really try to focus on very different things. You know, they can just stop by a bush or a little animal or an insect, maybe you not even recognize it, and stare it for very, very long minutes. And when you are in a rush, this can be like challenging situations. And I needed to learn from Finnish parents to see them that how it's important to give the child their own time and respect their different structure of the time, and also to understand that what are the important things for children, what are the different needs. And of course, we are always talking about this, and it's very easy to talk about this, but when you try to, after a family visit, maybe you try to leave home, and you think that maybe it would go faster if you would tie the shoes instead of your child, that you not let him or her to do it, but you take care about it, it would be much more faster. But Finnish parents not really doing that, but they really wait that the children must do themselves these things. They need to learn how to take care about themselves. This is the first thing what they start to teach to the children, that how they can take care about themselves and these very basic things, and also to give time for all these activities and all this learning, and also to let the children to have their own interest. And yeah, this was one of the things what was great to learn for me.
So what I hear you saying is that we here in America, well, the Finns at one point in history, about 50 years ago, they were like the 56th percentile of education. They weren't doing so well. They were out where we were. Their schools weren't doing so well. And then they buckled down and they started doing much better until they became the top five, top. And they credit it to all these different things they did in school. We'll talk about that, why Finnish schools do so well. But you're suggesting also that Finnish culture had perhaps it's a big role in this, that it's already set up to the style of parenting, the style of teaching their children, the culture of what we would call a slow culture of appreciating long moments and not cutting off process, because a kid might stare at something and they might look a little crazy because they're staring at that beautiful beetle, and they're staring at it for minutes on end, and like, he should be playing baseball with his friends. What's wrong with my kid? And you're like saying, don't say there's something wrong with your kid. There might be something right with your kid, that the other kids are just following the leader over there. They're not really learning that much by following the leader. That's right. So it's an interesting observation. And I hadn't thought about that maybe there's something about just the Finnish culture about that actually could be handed down to other cultures. These are lessons that anybody can do. Not tie your kid's shoe. Let them suffer through it, like we all had to at some point in our lives. Am I hearing you right?
Yes, you hear exactly what I wanted to tell with these stories. Yes, I think in these terms how we use them. So Finnish culture is a have the sense, at least for the slow culture. I wouldn't say that it's a slow culture, but there is nothing strange here in being slow, and also to being having the own pace. This is something what actually also professionals will suggest you, that this usual question, especially with young parents, that what's wrong with my kid? And then if you pose this question to any professionals here, maybe it's not the first thing that they give you some medication or give you some explanation or give you some kind of recipe or a method how you can change the way of the things are going, but they will tell you that, hey, give this kid its own time. You know, it's everything happening differently with individuals. We can't know. There is no problem with that, and be patient and trust in your child, and trust that that it will be solved. And also, what I can see also in the Finnish society, it's a little bit actually parallel with the American, but on a very different way. But I think there is a big respect also the personal character and the personal characteristics, the personality, that we are growing into different individuals. We think differently, and these different creativities also must be respected. And also this kind of individualism is also here, but this is based on a very strong feeling, a community feeling, and also a very disciplined community culture. So people are here are really following the rules, those rules what they made. They made these rules for good, and they really take care about to remind each other, also to teach each other. So it's a very much an educative or a learning based culture here, much more actually than my Hungarian culture.
But your Hungarian culture is more like respect for the teacher. It's more direct instruction. The teachers communicating to the student knowledge.
Yes, there is a great amount of history in this. It's a reality. What you say, it's true like that. But I think it's not the true Hungarian culture, but it's more due to the history. But it's like that. And also what I saw, like a big difference, that Hungarian creativity and also Central European creativity have a great potential in working against the rules, and how to solve things, how to trick the rule, how to trick the ruler. Also, you know, that this kind of the poor little forceless person who is more clever than anyone else, and pass through these hierarchies and solve big problems with going against the rule. But here in Finland, it's much different. They have a trust in the rule what they made. So it's also a self-made society. So Finland is less more than 100-year-old society, and they are very, very proud to their independence, and also those rules what are for the society and what they created.
Yes, so you're saying Finland is a rather new country, right?
Yes, exactly.
Were they under the Kingdom of Sweden before that?
Yeah, Russia and Sweden. So it was changing the position between these two big empires in.
Right. America has this tendency of has a weird relationship with tradition and the past. We tend to have a cultural amnesia, where every new generation thinks that what they've got going on is what's going on. And there's lots of forgetting. It seems like, even like in the last 50 years, there's just a willful not caring about the past. And I know I'm generalizing, of course, but it seems like there's an advantage to a culture that's focused on the new, but there's also a handicap built in as well. That that there's much lost in, there was much learned that you could lose if you don't have an understanding of the past. It seems obvious, of course, but I found in education there's not much history of education taught to pre-service teachers. When I was a pre-service teacher, we never talked about Emile or Montessori or Froebel or Pestalozzi or any of the, even though the professors said they were progressive, there was more focus on what was important now, which tended to be a kind of cultural critique, conflict theory, where everything is seen as a conflict between the parent and the child, the teacher and society and the individual. So it was cast in negative terms. And critical thinking was seen as in that vein, this back in the 1990s. So it was more of a Marxist dialectic view of things, which was current at the time. It still pretty much is. But we're talking about something that seems to be kind of eternal in humanity. There's something true about human nature. We're not trying to erase human nature. We're trying to embrace it because it's our best tool moving forward. If we can allow children to explore their own human nature in a constructive, safe environment, we're using our dollar very wisely because they're the best technology we already have. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we go in the same line. Yes.
Okay, so give my listeners a vision you have for where we're going right now. We see, because in America it's all about STEM and STEAM education. We're going to Mars on rockets. Things seem to, in some ways, seem to be going very well for us. But it seems like there's also a crisis in education where lots of kids don't seem to be doing as well as they used to in school. The colleges are suffering because of that. A lot of colleges that used to have maybe 10% of their kids were remedial when they came into a college, into a special program to get them up to speed. Now the bars are being lowered in colleges in America, especially to like maybe 30, 40, 50 percentile of the kids are not at the reading levels and math levels that used to be bar them from college. So it seems like there's a feeling that there's a failure happening in school. You travel all over the world. You've been to China, Africa, you go everywhere. Do you get a sense of a global problem and solution? What's your assessment of what's going on in the world right now?
It's a very, very, very complicated question. I think I can't answer it in this conversation now, but I can talk about my own experiences. So first of all, I became very disappointed by the whole institutionalized response to the COVID-19 crisis. I think this is something where we are still in, and what told a lot about the incompetency and also the many of the misunderstanding about the role of school and how do we look at teachers and how do we look at schools. So I was really worried, and actually it was no difference in this disappointment of mine in whatever countries or whatever cultures I looked at. Even in Finland, I could experience very similar things, that society or okay, it's very difficult to name the agency who or what, but maybe the system where we are living in tend to look at schools like the place where you put your children until you are working. And to
right.
put your children there. So I think it's a very important way of expression here. And it looked that schools have the less important function, is that these are the places where today's children spending most of their time, and these are the places where children supposed to learn meaningful ways, And these are the places where children supposed to become the best version of themselves, or the best, make the most potential. So what I saw, it was nothing to do with this great Rousseauian or Pestalozzian or any kind of ideas. It was just a very very disappointing moment when you could have seen the truth about that how the policy and how politics and how the decision makers look at school and how it comes down to society. So I really, that was a quite dramatic process for me to face with this, also in Finland, as I thought. But in the same time, I also think there are a lot of hope here, because what we saw, that teachers and also parents really, many of them stood very strong when they were really left alone, and they took all the responsibility what wasn't taken by the political and also the social environment. And of course, those voices in many times were a little bit toned down. You know, there are always someone who say that what teachers should do, or what is the goal of or how it should work. Right. So we really didn't hear this big loud choir there, because everybody was in deep trouble. But we could see those teachers who really try to make up solutions also to reach those children who really become cut from everything what society can provide, and all the protection, because we should see that UNESCO had very clear numbers about the number of how many billions of children didn't get access to even basic needs, what even the worst school can take care of. So I think that was a really disappointing thing, and also that makes me worry a lot. And also, in the same time, that's why I think that this is a moment where really parents and also those teachers who want to contribute to the change, they need to get the things working into their own hand, and they need to cooperate, find the cooperations between themselves. It's not anymore time to wait for that this platform will be given, or we will be asked about this and that. It won't happen. And if it will be happen, there will be some agenda behind it. But we really need to make these connections ourselves, and that's what I saw, that this is also the role of Lux Blocks community, experience workshop community, right, that we can take care about these things ourselves, and we can find the way also, of course, within the institution. It's not an exodus. We don't want to go out. We don't want to leave these institutional backgrounds, because this is the realistic situation where we are living. But we need to make the change ourselves, regardless how careless is the environment around us.
Wow. Well, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with it 100%. And what you're saying is more of a libertarian American over here. You're saying don't wait for the state to figure all this stuff out. because it might be longer than your child's childhood.
Yes,
right?
And especially don't wait until the state will be there, because so yes, not only don't wait for, but don't wait until.
Exactly.
I would say.
Yeah.
But I'm not an anarchist at all, and I'm not talking about to get prepared against the state,
of course not,
but to provide the protection and find the way, like water flows through between the rocks. So whatever is the policy, whatever is the school reality, there is so much turning on the individual, and this is what we cannot push away this responsibility to the state, to another person.
I work with schools a lot, and I've had principals tell me, well, I'll buy your product if you can guarantee me the children's math scores will go up. Right? That was the singular focus for this principal, was scores must rise, right? And being the terrible salesman that I am, I said, I won't guarantee that. I should have probably said, of course I will guarantee it. I guarantee it, but I didn't do that. But I thought it was very interesting that principal, who is not with us anymore, he actually committed suicide, but that's not probably why he committed suicide. But that was a really telling story for me, that there's a gun to a lot of these principals' heads, right? And there's a gun to a lot of teachers' heads, that they have to perform according to the state's test mandates, right? To maybe parents' expectations. And there's lots of corralling of kids into IQ categories and career path categories. And so much of American education seems to be preparing kids to be clerks working in offices for lots of money. The school is very clean. The kids never get dirty. They don't sweat anymore. They don't have showers anymore. They don't go to gym and sweat. They took the showers away from kids. It seems to be very much going towards a white collar idea of pre-college education for all, when in fact we know that probably 20 or 30% of these kids probably shouldn't be going to college when they're 18 years old or more, that they won't be ready for college, or they'll never be ready for college, because that's not what they should be doing. So it seems like my point is there's lots of agendas being pointed at the school. And the school is servicing all of these agendas, and none of them are malevolent necessarily. They're not evil intended, but they're selfish agendas. They're agendas that are directed towards what people want, right? And it seems like you are fighting the good fight, because you're saying these children are dear. We want to give them what's best for them. Let them play and learn while they're playing. And you'll see the results, because they're going to become better, more comfortable, less nervous human beings. Is that about right?
Yes, absolutely. And also, I'm of course facing with the same situation that policymakers, school leaders, and even of course in many situations teachers want that the performance level goes higher, but there is also certain potentials to get it understood that there are many different ways to perform and to be creative, which is the school's focus is very many times too narrow to appreciate all those kind of developments or all those kind of positive changes.
Give me a model then. Give me a model, because I know there's one out there, of a school that does that. How does that look? That kind of school that measures other things besides test scores. Do you work with schools like that?
Yes, I mostly say that yes, there are schools which I see much better places for the children than others, and also there are many teachers whose practices I see much more positive than others, and basically these are always different. My perspective on what I think good about that, what is taken as good in these official performance levels. So what I see most important is there a learning community? Is there are people who are caring and thinking about the community of children there, and also the community of teachers there, and how these personal skills are developed, and collaboration, and also inclusive ways of learning. And these are always more important for me than this kind of administrative performance. But in the same time, when the community is working really well, also the performance on this administrative level will also grow. These are the best examples what I see, that when the human contribution can happen, and also the creative contributions can happen in learning situation, and there is a certain amount of freedom, and also self agency is respected in these schools.
So you're saying it's almost less of an accounting problem, that you're saying that you really can't use an accounting model to demonstrate and prove that all these different aspects are growing, right? It's more of a culture of the school, and this kind of almost magic that happens when you walk into a school when they're doing it right. You can tell by the vibe, by the enthusiasm, by the enthusiasm for all the right things. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. It's also important to see that whenever these buzzwords are coming in, like I used many of them in this conversation, to like creativities. Right. So there are many ways to realize also fashionable models and how to implement these methods in school, and we can see also very many bad implementations, and I call them bad when it's not contributing to the happily growth of the children, to the happiness level. And of course, this is the most abstract term. What does it mean that someone is happy? Right. But maybe this can be break down into very well understandable things, that for example, if a child have any kind of negative stress before going to school, so if they have any bad associations related to school, it can be bullying, or it can be also teachers can misuse their power in situations. So if a child feels good to be in a school, or can't wait to go to the school again, I think this is the very objective actually description of the school, and you can be sure that when it's that, it's not because that there is nothing important happening in that school, and this is all about just this childish playing. Children won't be interested in that after some age level, but they will be interested if their intellectual development is challenged day by day on a positive way, in a positive atmosphere, and also if there is a good community, if they have friends there, if their friends are motivating them to do something good, to go forward in their life, and if there is a support coming from the teachers. So you will find all these little elements, and this is what I see more frequently in Finnish schools than in other schools wherever I visited. And this is not because that Finnish education is perfect. Actually, it's good to see that there are very deep problems also what teachers in Finland are facing day by day, and there are not less important questions and problems than in any other countries. But there is like these ideas or these visions about school is more pointing towards this community and well-being, or you can call it health, a healthy life, and also to live a happy life on a certain way.
That's amazing. I remember so much of school being the misery, which was basically getting back your quiz score, and I always scored pretty low on quizzes, getting back your test scores, right? And seeing all that red ink. And it was always a fight for the green, blue, and red ink, right? Like, what kind of ink am I going to get on my paper? And so lots of worksheets, and lots of just pre-testing and testing. It seemed like that was a lot of education. But what I remember most about sixth grade was, I've spoken about this before, Mr. Dick, his class, he wanted us to have a sense of how big a 747 jet was, right? So he had the whole school, took all the chairs from the school and put it on the soccer field. And we used measuring tape, and we measured the rows, how wide they'd be, how many seats they'd be, how wide the airplane was, what the wingspan was. And we used all the cones from the gymnasium, the orange cones, and we made an outline of the plane, right, of the 747. And then we all sat in the plane, we all cheered because we were all flying in this imaginary 747. And I have never forgotten that lesson. It was the most brilliant lesson. It involved the whole school because everyone was bringing their chairs out to put inside the airplane, right? He had us bury all these different objects in the fall, and then dig them up in the spring to see how they biologically degraded. Leather belts. I remember my leather belt, what it looked like after a year of being in the soil. So I remember just loving his class, and it was science, it was math, it was moving furniture, it was everything. And I thought he was a great teacher because I have a very positive remembering. I had a great sixth grade year, and I think we all can point to a certain grade, and it was probably because we had a great teacher. And it was that kind of a teacher that got us involved, right? Got us building things, doing things like that. So I hear what you're saying. And I think that is probably a good indicator. How stressed out is the kid before school? How much do they want to go to school? Because it's not because they're brats. It's because they're stressed out because of really good reasons, you're saying.
Yes, just one little story about this, that I was already a teacher when I came to Finland. So I had I graduated as a teacher, and I was doing my doctoral studies, and I felt like an expert in educational sciences and also educational practices. And I started to learn Finnish also here in an official course with all these components, with writing tests and everything. And there came the moment when I got to understand that what are the tests for, what are the real function of the tests, or what are the reasonable way to look at a test. And it was a completely dramatic moment that even these basic things which I'm implementing as a teacher, I have no idea of what is the function of a test. And that was it, that my language teacher thought that, okay, there will be a test coming. Is there anyone in the group who feels excited about it? Maybe not necessarily on a positive way. Do you feel a little bit stressed about it, that it's coming? And yeah, of course, no one thought nothing, but she just kept asking it. And yeah, there were some answers, from here and there. Yes, I'm a bit unsure about my knowledge level and so on. Okay. And she thought that, hey, don't worry about this test at all, because I tell you why we are doing this test. So in the beginning of this course, we made an agreement. I agreed with you as a teacher, with you as a student, that we will reach a goal into the end of this course, that you will learn a certain level of Finnish, and this is where we are going forward. And now I need to see what's happening with our agreement. Do we need to change this agreement? Maybe I will need to change something based on this test. and maybe you will be the one who will say that, okay, I need to change something. And this is the function of the test, what we are writing now, that after we wrote it, we will take a look of the results, and you can tell me that if I had a too hard question which was not enough taught in the class, or I can tell you that maybe you need spend 1 more hour with preparing to the language class. So and it was maybe it's a little story, but it was a dramatic moment that, hey, I was spent all these years in education. I also trained as a teacher, and I never felt that a test is written for that. I always felt that these tests are pressuring and also threatening the children and
Right.
keep them in the drill, and it's not at all. And
Right.
Finnish children grow up in this culture. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, no, I think it's beautiful. And basically she's saying the test is a scientific meter. She's saying that we call it pre-test, post-test. The pre-test tells us what you don't know and what you could learn, and the post-test says, well, how much have you learned in 6 months, right? And that's all it is. It's a scientific way of measuring something, and that's much more fair. And the kids, if they knew that we're just measuring something, it's not about how stupid you are, how lazy you are. It's how much this class is working right now. And you're a part of that, how much it works. Maybe I could do a better job as a teacher. You could do a better job as a student. Maybe we should, do more homework or less or whatever, or do some games to support what we're doing. But if it's seen scientifically, then you're teaching a science lesson, that there's a science to all this, right?
Yes, absolutely right. And I would like to put one more thing next to that, and this was the agreement that we made an agreement,
right?
And this is also a very Rousseauian thing, like this social agreement, and also that all things what we decide to do have to be based on transparency and making agreements, and also we have to know the way how to negotiate if we want to change these agreements. And Finnish schooling is very much based on this kind of agreements, also parents' position in this, and also not only the teachers, because there are many professions around the school and within the school which are supposed to have these agreements are fulfilling their role.
Yeah, so they become a stakeholder essentially in the whole process.
Yes.
They're part of the process, which is a great and that's a democratic principle. That's part of their culture, right? It's a beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And I think that if you don't have that, then it is an authoritarian practice, right? That it becomes a prison school. And I've always teased my friends in America that it's essentially a prison school. They don't have any choice in going there. They have no choice in what they're learning, and they're judged. And it's a lot of it's misery with sporadic recesses and gym classes and fun, but it could be made so much better if they're brought into the process a little bit, like you're saying, and make the inside of the school model outside of the school, that we live in a democratic country.
Yes, and just your metaphor about prisons. Yes, of course, we know. Maybe it's a stereotype, but also prisons are the best schools also for learning more crimes, right? And then to get to have more knowledge about how to do criminal things. And when I think back about my schooling, I learned a lot of crimes, like how to cheat in the test, and how to make my way shorter than it was supposed, how to hide things from my teachers or from my parents. So I have all this training what is, I think, very much off track when you think about a good society.
Yeah, how to talk about a book that we haven't read. That's something I learned in college. How to talk very well on a book you haven't read. That was so. Again, to your point of learning how to lie, I also think that a lot of comedians learn how to be comedians in school. because the teacher sets himself up as the straight guy, right? It's a
Yes.
setup. He has an audience behind him. There's the person
Yeah.
I'm going to make fun of and see how funny I am. It's just a perfect situation for comedians.
Yeah, and that's the positive side of this whole story, because I think this part of the things are absolutely great when also you can experience irony and humor, and also you can even make fun of certain things, and also from people, but also the limit when it becomes something else than just to contribute to the positive community atmosphere.
Well, lastly, I want you to tell us how we in America, you've been all over the world, what can parents do and teachers do to help bring more experiential learning into the school and into kids' lives? What's some quick, you're a father of 2 children now?
Yes.
Yeah. So give us some advice before I let you go on what we could do right now to make a difference in our own children or our own students' lives.
Yes. I think it's quite important to maybe it's tend to be more and more overlooked in our society, when we are always just caring of running after the money and taking care about these everyday things. But I would recommend to have a hobby, right? So that you need some kind of passion in your life, and give time to that passion. And if you are extremely lucky, like I feel I'm extremely lucky, it's sort of my hobbies and my work have a very broad interface in my life, and I really love to play with the Lux blocks, for example. It's also my passion to this tinkering and do these things what I'm also researching about. But first of all, to find things what you are passionate about, and have time to do that, and also to involve your children into these passions, and share your joy of doing things, because I think that can be missing a lot from today's society, that we think that if we will buy something from a lot of money what we earned, that will be make our children happy. But absolutely not. But that kind of attention, that amount of time what we focus on and we spend with them, and I think to have open ears and open eyes, and also understanding of this different time set and different mindset of a child, and get to know your child better, and be him or her best friend. Also, I mean, I'm not supposing that I will be the best friend of my children after 10 years from now, but I really hope that anytime they can turn to me just as almost like to their best friends. And that's why I think that though I'm really pressured with my work, with my timetables, and you mentioned traveling, so there was not too much traveling, of course, in these last years, but normally there are. But I'm actually not worrying about a minute what I can spend with my children and with my family, and this need to have time in my timetable, and this is what I can also suggest to everybody, because it's very easy to go away a little bit, to go out, and then when you recognized that you are not needed anymore, because things are going even without you in a relationship with another human, when especially it's your child or it's with your student, that's a dramatic experience which I don't wish to anyone. So please don't lose any minute to spend with your student and with your child.
Yeah, what you remind me of was when people were poor before the age of wealth, which we are kind of in right now, the middle class age we are in, where there's more money than ever before. When it was a poorer society, there seemed to be more craft, more cooking, more
Yes.
making your own clothes,
Very important.
more making
Yes.
music on the porch. We had porches in America, I was in Finland, but we had porches. But there was, like, again, more making music, more making clothes, more making food, more taking care of animals. It was it seemed to be a more hands-on experiential world we lived in. It wasn't so much consuming other people's entertainment through a device, right? And you're suggesting get back to that, find that hobby, build a radio with your son, do something that's a passion of yours to transmit that interest and that other than just making money thing in life.
Yes.
I think it's dead on
And
right.
also, yeah, also for the teachers, because I think it's also very important that the teachers also start to work together. So we really much talk about collaborative learning, but I think it's also time to talk about collaborative teaching, and also involving also the parents as much processes as possible. And in these activities, collaborative teaching, this personal connection will be again the most important thing, and this can happen also through hobbies or spending a little bit free time together, which is definitely not usual when you have a work connection to
Right.
mix free time and work time. That's really can be think that it's strange, but actually it's not. And I think schools also need to be much more open for these free time get-togethers, that those events where the parents and teachers and students are involved into activities. It's not just about seeing a performance in the Christmas show or something, but to do things together in the school and reinforce these connections. I think this is something great that what could be considered also on a leadership or policy level.
Right, and you're going back to Rousseau, because that was his idea too. Was the idea that the school should be an extension of the community, not a fortress within the community, right? And Kirby Earner last week was saying that we need to change our imagination a little bit and imagine that schooling happens while we're awake, but we're always learning. Properly thinking, we should always be learning, and then we happen to go to school and there's maybe a more focus on certain kinds of learning, but when we leave school, it's not just conspicuous consumption, we turn that off. But what did you do when you went home? Oh, you were with your dad. What did you build? Oh, you built that. Tell us about that. So it's a dialogue that happens while you're awake, and the school is there just to maybe push that along in a more formal way. But you make this child the stakeholder in their education every moment of their day. They're always learning, they're always thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what I think, and this is why it's good to talk with you, because we share very much the same ideas as I always see it.
We're simpatico, man. Totally.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you gave me your time today to talk, because this is good for me too, because sometimes I feel in America, I'm very alone over here in Galesburg, and it's a pleasure to speak to somebody like you. I do consider you as being a tip of the spear, in a sense, of this long progressive movement. And you're fighting, which I think is the greatest fight, because this is moving on into a very distant future, working with young children and working with teachers in schools. This is a very long-term, great effort, and you're a part of it in a big way. So thank you for sharing your time with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you a lot, Mike. I learned a lot from you today as well. And what you mentioned about this fight, I think we are in the absolutely in the same crew. So it's good to be on board also in the Lux spaceship and on spaceship Earth. So I'm really confident that this journey will bring us somewhere until people like you are in the captain seat. So thank you.
I like to think of myself as being Captain Kirk on Spaceship Lux. That's pretty cool. Well, but promise me you'll come back to us again sometime in the next 6 months and talk again about what's going on in Finland and the world. Okay, once we get past this
really badly. Yes.
Okay,
yes,
man. I'm gonna take us.
Do that.
I'm gonna take us off Facebook right now. I'm stopping the live stream. So now we're
on.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No. I just wanted to say that
we're still recording, so we will record on LinkedIn.
Okay. that this lineup of people. So it's a great honor to be in this wonderful lineup. So I really appreciate this opportunity that you invited me.
I should let you say it on Facebook, but that's okay. And you're welcome, of course, man. And you do fit well within that lineup because and next week we're having Ken Colleen, the biochemist from Australia, and he's developing new.
I through you I know him, though.
Oh, good. You do.
I never been, like, maybe in some messenger we were a bit chatting, but I'm really interested in the things what he's doing, and he's a very special person.
He's the mad scientist, man. He's that kid you had in school that you're like, what the hell is that? And he was the mad scientist, right?
And he's also a dad, right? A young
now
dad.
He's a dad. He's really changed a lot, I think. Because
crazy dad. Yes.
He's amazing. He's a genius, and now that he's working on his PhD, the research he's doing is profound, and he's making in his backyard biofuels out of algae. It's just crazy what he's doing.
Oh yeah. Good. So good. I will look at that too.
Okay. Well.
All right. Hey, and a root down production. Take off on the printer, 20 and whatever. Service. We are going to tell them, say, watch out. Who listen up? If you rock to this, your sound, stomp your feet on this, your ground. Get ready for jump up and down. I sing the sound in your tongue. If you rock to this, your song, stomp your feet on this, your ground. Get ready for jump up and down. I sing the sound in your tongue. What can me tell them, say? Then we set a new trend. Go and tell your friend. No for the bass and for them, and we can't find no end. Then we set a new trend. Go and tell your friends. No for the bass and for them. Look at me, tell them, say, oh yeah. Your sound, stomp your feet on this your ground. Get ready for jump up and down. I sing the sound in your tongue. If you rock to this your sound, stomp your feet on this your ground. Get ready for jump up and down. I sing the sound in your tongue. Look at me, tell them, say it.
My name is Kristof Fenyvesi. I work in the Finnish Institute for Educational Research and I'm the founder of Experience Workshop STEAM Network. STEAM means the integration between science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics in education. We have organized various math art education events and interactive exhibitions, workshops, seminars and training all over in Europe, Asia, Africa and America. Over the years, several tens of thousands of people participated in our events. Experience Workshop's international STEAM network and community have hundreds of active members like teachers of various subjects, artists, scholars, artisans and toy makers. Experience Workshop experiments with various educational approaches to allow learning mathematics through the arts and to make art with mathematics. We aim to involve the children, teachers and families into a vibrant and creative dialogue between the mathematical and artistic way of looking at our world. Experience Workshop's primary research interests involve, but not limited to, STEM and STEAM education, inquiry-based, cooperative, playful and experience-oriented mathematics education, connecting problem-solving processes in science and art education, connecting hands-on activities and digital modeling in mathematics, science, art and design education, science and art connections in learning, phenomenon-based learning and collaborative teaching, inter, cross and transdisciplinary management and transcurricular leadership in education.
When I was only 5, I thought the world turned around the playground. In my little mind, I didn't know that things happen under the ground. When the children play with their toys, I tried to make sound from the noise. The others said, you never play with us, you're
Experience Workshop movement conducts online and offline trainings, publishing various kinds of printed and online resources for teachers, parents and students, books, apps, science and art albums, teacher resources and scientific articles. Experience Workshop is running an international traveling exhibition of mathematical art, which included in Experience Workshop online and offline events. The collection includes artworks, scientific modeling tools, math art puzzles, and other spectacular objects.
When I was only 5, I thought the world turned around the playground. In my little mind, I didn't know that things happen under the ground. When the children play with their toys, I tried to make sound from the noise. The others said, you never play with us, you'll shut me down. One day my mother said, let's go and buy some bread and hold my hand. Next week I went alone, but a really big and alone, couldn't carry it home. Climbed up on a tree every morning just to be much higher. Join in the dance, lights go, guns and fire. When I was only 5, I thought the world turned around the playground. In my little mind, I didn't know that things happen under the ground.
For further information, check out our website at experienceworkshop.org and visit our webshop learningbydoing.fi. Follow us in social media.